Hi guys, and welcome to part 3 of this Selenium WebDriver with JavaScript video series on the LambdaTest YouTube channel. My name is Ryan, and today we're going to be talking all about assertions. First up, we're going to look at what we really mean by assertions, what they are, how and when we can use them. Secondly, we're going to look at two separate ways we can write our assertions. First up, we'll look at using the built-in Node.js library for creating assertions. And after that, we'll look at using Chai, an assertion library popular in Node.js. Finally, we'll do a recap of everything we've learned about assertions. Assertions are a mechanism for us to be able to validate the state of our application. For example, you could use an assertion statement to check that a URL has changed following a successful login, or perhaps the valid error message or alert pop-up appears in a certain situation. You could use it to check that an item has been successfully added to a shopping cart. In our example, we could use an assertion statement to check that our new to-do has been added to the list and contains the correct text. Assertions can be used to confirm if a test passes or fails. If our to-do hasn't been added or the text is incorrect, then our test will fail. If the to-do has been added and the text is as we expect, then our test will then pass. First up, we're going to take a look at the built-in Node.js package for writing assertions. Now, by built-in, what I mean is that we don't have to use npm to install this package in order for us to use it. However, we do still have to use require in order to use it in our test. So if I jump into Visual Studio Code and go back to the text we wrote in part 2 of this video series, I can add a new require statement under our previous one for Selenium WebDriver. So I'll start by using const, and then I'll call this assert equals require brackets quotation marks, and in here we are going to use assert just like that. So now we've required this package in our file. So now let's take a look at what we'd like to assert. In our example, we were adding a to-do to this web application, and we added a new to-do called Learn Selenium. So what we want to do in this example is write an assertion to check that Learn Selenium has been added to our list. And to do that, we can go back to Visual Studio Code and start writing our assertion until we've created it. So our assertion will have to go below this line here. So underneath here, I'm going to create a new section called assert. And then in this section, we can start writing our first assertion. To begin with, I'm going to create a new variable called to-do text. This variable will hold the text we want to validate. So what we want to do is check that the newly created to-do contains the text Learn Selenium, which we used here when creating our to-do. In order to create our to-do, we need to be able to first find the element, much like we did when creating the to-do here. So we'll use await driver dot find element by dot. Now in this example we used ID, but for this line we're actually going to use XPath instead, like that. Add some brackets. Then inside these quotation marks we can add our XPath. In order to find an XPath we can use, I'm going to go back to our application, open up Developer Tools, and from here you can see that each of these to do belongs to a single list. Every time a to do is added, it gets inserted at the bottom of the list. So here is our latest to do, and it's been added right at the bottom of the list. So our XPath in our test needs to be able to retrieve the last entry within this list. And to do that, we can go back to Visual Studio Code, and inside our quotations we can build our XPath. First we'll do // followed by li for list, and then we're going to open and close square brackets, and inside these square brackets we can enter last and then open and closed brackets. Now this XPath will find the list element and then retrieve the last item in it. We've only got one list on our page, so this will work perfectly fine. Now in particular, it's the text of this element we want to find. So to do that, we can use Selenium get text command, like that. Just remove the extra weight. There we go. So now that what we're saying is find this element, the last element in this list, and retrieve the text value of that element. Then it will be stored in this to-do text variable for us to use in our assertion. Now in order to use the value retrieved by getText, we need to return it as part of a then function. To do that, after getText, we will type dot then, and then open brackets. Inside here we'll create a new function, and open brackets again, and in these brackets we'll just enter the word value, and then outside of these brackets we'll create new curly brackets, and then let's just create some space here. Now inside here we just need to do one thing. We can return value, just like that. And what this will do is it will return the value retrieved from getText and store it in to-do.text. That means we'll then be able to use that value in our next line of code. So underneath here we're going to write our assertion. To do that we're going to enter assert dot, and we're going to use strict equal, and this is a mechanism for checking that two strings match. From here we can open brackets. We need to provide two arguments. Firstly, what the actual value is, and then secondly what our expected value is. So our actual example has been stored in this to-do.text variable. So we've gone to our web application, we've retrieved the value, and we've stored it in to-do.text. So our actual value, we can just type to-do.text. Our expected value is what we've listed here. learn Selenium. So we can just take this string and add it here, like this. So what we're doing now is we're saying, check that the value stored in this variable, the value which is on our web application, check it matches the value here, learn Selenium. So now we can actually run this test to see if it works. Let's run it now. We can see from the output that this is now running. So any second now we should see a new instance of Firefox open, and our test runs. I'll go back to Visual Studio Code. You can see that the test has worked. We've got no errors. We have exit code equals 0, which means no errors, and the test is passed. If I change this text to learn JavaScript and saved it and rerun the test, you should now see Firefox open again. Our test gets run, but the browser doesn't close. And the reason it doesn't close is because our test has failed before our driver.quit step. And if we look at the terminal now, you can see that we've got an assertion error. Our actual value is different to our expected value. So this is how we can use assertions to check that our application is behaving in the way that we would expect it to. So now that we've had a look at using the built-in Node.js library for assertions, let's have a look at Chai. So Chai is a very popular assertion library for JavaScript, and it provides us with 3 functions for writing assertions. We can write should, expect, and assert style assertions. Now each comes with its own syntax, but you can use whichever best suits your use case. For our demo, we're going to take a look at should. But first, let's install Chai. So I'll go back to Visual Studio Code, and from the terminal, I'm just going to do npm install Chai. So this is going to install the Chai package into our project. If we open up our package.json file now, you'll see that we have Selenium WebDriver that we installed previously, but we also now have Chai listed as one of our dependencies, which means this is now being installed into our package. Let's close that down. So now we can start using Chai in our test. So as always, if we want to use a package in our file, we first need to add it at the top of our file as a require statement. So we'll do that now. Var should, because we're using the should style of assertion, equals require, brackets, inside quotations we can add Chai. Now in this instance, at the end of this line, we're going to add dot should and open and close brackets. Now if you're going to be using the expect or assert style of assertions from chai, then you don't need to add this last bit. It's only relevant if you're going to be using the should style. So now that we've added this line in here, we can write our assertion. So down here we already have our previous assertion. So I'm just going to give that a little title here so we know what it is. So this is assert using node assertions, and then below that we can add a new one which says assert using chai should, and we can add our chai assertion here. Now, one of the reasons that chai assertions are so popular is because they make those assertions more human readable, and you'll see that in this example here. When we're using should, we start with the value that we want to validate. So in this instance, it's our to-do text value here. So what we're really saying is to-do text should equal learn Selenium. And that's exactly how we write it. So we start to-do text dot should dot equal, and inside these brackets we can add our expected value. So in this instance it's our learn Selenium value here. So I'll just copy that and add that here. So there we are. This is our chai assertion. Our to-do value should equal our expected value here. So let's run this now. Before we run this, I'm just going to comment out our previous assertion, save the file, and then hit run. And we should see much the same as before. Our browser launches, the test runs, and the browser closes. When I go back to Visual Studio Code, I can see that our test is completed with a code of 0, meaning that there have been no errors. Likewise, if I change this to JavaScript, run it again, our browser will launch, but in this time it won't close because we received the error before we hit this driver.quit statement. There we are, the browser hasn't closed. If I navigate back now, you can see that in our output we've got an error, and we can see that we expected learn Selenium, which is our actual value, to equal learn JavaScript, which is our expected value. So let's have a look at what we learned today. So first up, we used a different way of locating elements on a page. Previously we'd used ID, but in this example we used XPath. We then had a look at how we could use the getText function to retrieve the text from this element. We then used .then to return that value and store it in our variable. Now don't worry too much about this. We're going to cover it in more detail on a subsequent video. Once we've stored our variable, we could use it in our assertions. Now we've used two different styles of assertions. First up, we use the built-in Node.js assertion to validate that the value of the to-do matched the value we expected. Secondly, we had a look at using chai to write our assertions using the should style. Again, we validated that our to-do, which was created, contained the text Learn Selenium part. So that concludes part 3 of this video series, where we learned all about assertions. As always, if you have any questions or want to get in contact with me, you can use the Twitter handle RyanTestStuff to find me. Alternatively, you can contact LambdaTest directly. If you enjoyed this video, why not go ahead and check out the other videos on the LambdaTest YouTube channel. Alternatively, visit the LambdaTest blog, where you will find a range of blog posts about various testing topics. If you're interested in certifications, visit the certification section of the LambdaTest website, where you can learn how to get LambdaTest Selenium certified. Well, that's it from me, and I'll see you on the next video.